Okay, so today we are going to discuss another function, Dirac delta function, and then we will see how it is connected with the Laplace transform and what to do with it in connection with the Laplace transform. We have already defined unit step function, and we have seen that there is a second shifting property associated with unit step function. And if unit step function is appearing as one of the functions on the right hand sides in a differential equation or initial value problem, then we know how to find its Laplace transform. Okay, so now we are going to define another function, which is Dirac delta function, and then we will see. So it's not like directly there's a definition, and I'll give you that. It's a little bit generalized concept. In fact, in a general sense, in the most general sense, it should not be called as a function. It does not behave like a function, but still mathematically, okay, let's just call it a function because the things other than that are beyond the course. We need to talk about much details if I go in that direction. So we'll be calling it a function. Okay, so what exactly it is? So for that, you need to understand that we do have examples from real life. We do have, for example, you can take the example of electrical circuit where you have a impulse. Okay, now what do you understand from a impulse? Impulse is something like a shock or a sudden, sudden increase in magnitude of something. It's like a jerk you feel. So impulse is a general word, and impulse, it's clear from the name, it happens for a very small interval of time. So it's something like, say in an electrical circuit, there's a sudden increase in the voltage drop, or there is a sudden, which leads to a sudden increase in current flow of electrons, or the current is high or the voltage is high suddenly for a small period of time. There's something which we call that, okay, it got fused, or there is a shock, we say short circuit or something like that. Okay, so say you have on this side time, and you have some any physical quantity, let it be voltage or let it be current. Say I'm taking an example. So it's going smoothly, but suddenly what happened? It just rise, and then again within a fraction of time, within that very very small interval of time, it came down and again became zero or constant, whatever is its value. For the time being, let's just assume a constant. So these kind of things are known as impulse. So I'm just giving you the interpretation of the word impulse. And now we will connect it with the function, how this graph, which you are looking at in front of you, how this can be modeled in the form of a function. That what is that mathematical expression which is going to represent this particular graph. So this is the reverse thing we are doing. Normally we are given a function, we draw its graph, but here we have a, a dynamic, this kind of dynamics is happening in a system, and we want to write a equivalent mathematical expression for the same, for this kind of impulses. So what is that going to be? So that is going to be a function. Now, so this is something like, sorry, this is something like, you have to assume that this is a very very small interval of time. Very very, like it's just instantaneous, right? Instantaneous. It is that instantaneous that we are not able to capture the length of that interval. But because we have to do the things mathematically now, so at least we should have some length of that interval, and then we will say this is very 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 small, this length of the interval is very very small, right? So actually what is happening, this impulse, usually if you mathematically draw it even more accurately, this is drawn like this, right? You will see this interpretation also in certain text of impulse function. It's just a line, it does not even look like this, and this upward arrow shows that it's going to infinity. It can be of magnitude as high as possible. If you talk about its magnitude terms, so the magnitude is very very high, it's as high as possible. So theoretically it has assumed that it is going to infinity. Obviously practically we never go to infinity, but it's theoretically that the magnitude is very very high. So very very small length of interval and very very high magnitude of this. So that's why it's shown with an upward arrow, that this is going like this. So this is how impulse function is seen. So this is the behavior is like. And if you look at this, now we cannot write mathematical expression for this one because it's difficult to do. So what you do is you write mathematical expression for this, and even before writing the formula or the function for this, we have a simpler version for the same, and that simpler version is this. Let me just define that. So let me just start with a function and then we will connect with that how this is modeling the impulse function. Okay. So let me define f of t 0, t less than a to b, and t greater than equals to b. So this is a function of time which I have defined. There are 2 points a and b on the real line, and over that interval ab it takes a particular value k, it's a constant value, while everywhere else the function is 0. So if you draw the graph of this, how does the graph of this is going to look like? So this is definitely, I mean, it's easy for all of you to see how this is going to look like. So this is somewhere there is point A and somewhere there is point B. Let's just assume they are on the positive side. Doesn't matter wherever you can assume them, but let's just assume because we are, having the physical quantity as a sense of time. So let's not talk about negative times. So let both the points A and B be on this side. So when t less than a, this function is 0. So this is having 0 value. I'm just drawing it so that you can see it this way. At t exactly equals to a, the value is constant. So there is a hollow circle here because at a the point is the value is not 0. At a the value is some other constant which is k. Then over the interval a to b the value remains constant which is k, and then at b it suddenly drops to 0 again because you see the equality is here, and then after that it just keeps on, it just remains 0. So this is also a kind of impulse function, but this is actually known as pulse function, rectangular pulse. So you might have seen this in circuits, outputs which are generated. So you have the pulse generated from there. So this comes in the category of rectangular pulse, not an impulse because impulse is happening instantaneously. So this is over a small interval, over an interval a to b. Some magnitude was there, otherwise every time the function is 0, right? So this is pulse of magnitude k for duration b minus a. Now I want to connect it with the impulse function. So for that I have to make my interval a to be very very small, right? Because I told you if the things are going to happen instantaneously, then we are going to, uh, you know, uh, make it closer towards the thing. Yes, those of you are asking, this is not a new chapter. I'm just introducing a new function and we'll connect it with the Laplace transform. So now let me take this b minus a is equal to epsilon, very small, right? So, and let's take for simplicity a is 0, b is epsilon. That let's take one of the point to be on the 0 and another point to be at some point b, and the length of the interval is very small because I want to generate an impulse, instantaneous impulse. So how this definition will be? So this, the way you have defined ft, so the same definition I will write: 0 epsilon, this is the notation, take b minus a is epsilon. ft will be 0 when t less than 0. ft will be, yes. And what k I am taking? K particularly I am taking 1 over b minus a, which is 1 over epsilon, because the function was supposed to take a value, some value, constant value. So that constant, if we take to be 1 over b minus a, so it's inversely proportional to the length of the interval. So I have taken it 1 over epsilon. So in that case, your function definition becomes this, right? So this ft and the above ft which I have written, they are same. It is just now I have chosen a particular a and a particular b. So a is chosen to be 0, b is chosen to be epsilon. So the length of the interval is b minus a, which is epsilon, and the constant k has been chosen to be 1 by epsilon. And this particular function, this is denoted by delta epsilon t. So this delta is a notation introduced to you. So this is actually the delta function, the Dirac delta function. But it will be written like, so it should have the same properties which your delta function has to be, which I defined in the beginning, that over a very small interval of time it takes value very very high. So you can clearly see from here, if your epsilon goes to 0, then your k goes to infinity, 1 by epsilon. So that goes to infinity. That is what a kind of function we wanted to define, that over a very small interval of time the magnitude shoots up. That's why I have taken to be 1 by epsilon, right? So we can write delta function is limit epsilon goes to 0 delta epsilon t. Because if you just look at this one as a function, this is not taking infinite values, this is taking finite values. No doubt the magnitude is very very small, but when you take limit epsilon goes to 0 on this function, then you see the constant goes to infinity. In that case, this becomes limit epsilon goes to 0. So let me write the definition here: 0, 1 by epsilon 0, t less than 0, 0 to epsilon, t greater than equals to epsilon. So 0, 0 will remain 0. Only epsilon is coming in 1 by epsilon. So this will be the how it will be defined. It will take just two values, either 0 or infinity. So infinity value will be taken in this interval. Sorry, let me just write it again. Where it will take value infinity? At 0. Everywhere else it will take value non-zero. Right. This is f of t. So you can see, because you see, if epsilon is going to 0, so this t lying from 0 to epsilon, this interval will be just shrinking to one point. T is equal to 0. So only at t is equal to 0, the value is infinity. Everywhere else, the value of the function is 0. So that is why if you draw its graph, so it will be like something like this. So this is at t is equal to 0, it's taking very very high magnitude. Everywhere else the function is 0. So this is the known as, this delta t is known as Dirac delta function. So it was discovered by physicist Paul Dirac. So it has many other applications, because we started directly from the applications in electrical circuits where you have the impulse kind of functions generating, and also in the mechanical system where we have sudden vibrations coming up from any source in the system, sudden shocks coming up in the system. So there these kind of functions are used. So that is the definition of the function. I hope that is clear to all. So we just need to know this as definition, that this is the function, and this Dirac delta function is a limiting value of this function delta epsilon, which is defined like this. Yes. So let me just very quickly again explain you. I don't know whether you have any doubts. Let me just very quickly explain. So I started with the impulse function. So we defined first function to be ft, which was a rectangular pulse. So over some interval a to b, it takes a constant value k, otherwise it is every time 0. So this is a rectangular pulse function of magnitude k. This is the magnitude. the jump which it takes for duration p minus a. Now we are finding an limiting case of this pulse function, that what will happen if this interval a to b is very very small. So we took the length of the interval b minus a is epsilon, very small, by putting a is 0 and b is epsilon, and the magnitude which is taking is 1 over that, because we want to replicate the dynamics of the original function, which was that within a small interval it should take very very high magnitude, almost going to infinity. So if epsilon will be very small, so 1 by epsilon will be very, very large. That is why k has been defined to be 1 by epsilon. So this gives me this function, delta epsilon t. So you need to remember this definition of delta epsilon t. So this is a function which takes value 1 by epsilon over an interval of length epsilon from 0 to epsilon. Otherwise, for t less than 0 or t greater than equal to epsilon, outside that interval, the value is 0, right? So this is the graph of this function will be like this, delta epsilon will be like that, there is 0 point, there is some epsilon, so this is 0, this is 0, and within this interval the magnitude is very very high, right? 1 by epsilon. So okay, it's still a rectangular pulse as you can see, but you just keep on shrinking this interval, right? You keep on shrinking this interval, the magnitude will go higher and higher, because the there is, this is the relation 1 by epsilon, right? Okay, so if you further shrink the magnitude, let me show you here. If you say further shrink the magnitude, let me take this interval now, this one, in that case it is going to be 0, 0, and this now it will shoot up to even higher. I'm sorry, I'm not able to draw it very straight, my pen is not working quite well today. Yeah, so this 1 by epsilon will even rise if you reduce the epsilon. So this rectangular pulse which was very broad earlier, so you keep on shrinking the interval, it will keep on rising. So ultimately it will be just like this function, that it will look like, okay, just it happened instantaneously, and after that it vanished again. So that is what our function, Dirac delta function, is this one, delta t, which is defined as the limiting value of delta epsilon t, right? I just hope that is clear to all of you. And then comes shifted Dirac delta function. Shifted means it's the same thing, it is just instead of 0 point, it is shifted to some other point, say some other point a. The length of the interval is still going to be epsilon, but it is shifted to some other point a apart from t is equal to 0. So in this case a will be a somewhere non-zero, and b will be a plus epsilon, so that the length of the interval remains epsilon, and obviously the magnitude of the impulse that still remains 1 by epsilon. So how this shifted Dirac delta function defined? So this is t has been shifted to t minus a. Earlier the above function I was writing delta epsilon t, so now it is delta epsilon t minus a. So the definition is going to be, for t less than a this, for t a to a plus epsilon 1 by epsilon, and for t greater than a plus epsilon it is 0 again. So if you draw its graph, so it is going to be somewhere 0 is there, this is a, this is a plus epsilon, so this is the function 0. From a to a plus epsilon it takes the magnitude 1 by epsilon, if this is your function delta epsilon, and after that it again takes 0. So it's just 0, say we have shifted from a to the point a, that's it, this side we have the time. So because this is just purely mathematical, because this kind of functions will be using in the equations, in the connection with the questions of Laplace transform. So Dirac delta function will be limit epsilon goes to 0 delta epsilon t minus a. So this relationship is same as what we wrote for previous, the if a is 0, right? So you need to remember this definition, you put a is equal to 0, you'll get the same function, right? So now let me connect it with the Laplace transform. So what will happen? What kind of questions will be given to us? We will be again required to solve initial value problems, the differential equations, where we will have these kind of functions appearing. If you remember last time, I introduced a question in the last lecture. We could not finish it. I'll come back to that again, that question in the end. We could not finish it, but we know that what was the concept, that the right hand side was function was happening to be a unit step function. So we needed to know the Laplace transform of unit step function. So same is here. We will be given differential equations in which the right hand side functions will be in the form of Dirac delta functions, because they are your source functions. The differential equations are governing the dynamics of the system. So the right hand side always represents the source, the external force, external driving force of the system. So if the external driving force of the system is in the form of impulse function or the Dirac delta function, so we need to know how to solve that initial value problem. So for that, because suppose you are given initial value problem like, say, something like a y dash plus b y dash plus c y is equal to some function. Suppose this ft happens to be Dirac delta function, right? So the process of solving this IVP remains the same, that you will take Laplace transform of both the sides. So the question is now how to find Laplace transform of Dirac delta function, because this was the reason we learned Laplace transform of unit step function, and we used that and connected with second shifting property. So same is for Dirac delta function, we'll be knowing now how to find Laplace transform of Dirac delta function. So this is our next task. We have defined the function, yet done nothing with it. But now I want to know how to find Laplace transform of Dirac delta function. And that is easy. What we will do, we will try to express Dirac delta function in terms of unit step function. Because if we are able to express Dirac delta function in terms of unit step function, and for unit step function, we already know how to find the Laplace transform. So that way it will be done, right? So let me just give it to you in general, how how the Dirac delta function is expressed in terms of unit step function. Okay, so for that, I need to go back to the original, the rectangular pulse function definition, which we defined, because that way it will be easier for you to understand. Ft, which we defined in the beginning, 0, k 0, t less than a less than tb, t greater than equals to b, right? We will come connected with Dirac delta by putting the same values of a, b, and k. But let me first give you for this kind of functions, because in this way you will learn in general also for these kind of functions also how to convert them to the unit step function, because Dirac delta can be done from here only, right? So what we are going to do here is so ft is going to be k times u t minus a minus u t minus b. So this function which I have written ft is nothing but k times the difference of two unit step functions. One of them is having the discontinuity at a, ut minus a, and other is the ut minus b. Now this is something we can verify. This is I've just written, but we can verify it very easily because I know how ut minus a is defined. So k, yes, how ut minus a is defined. So ut minus a, let me just first start from here. Yeah, so I know the definition of unit step function, that for t less than a it will take value 0, otherwise t greater than equals to a it will take value 1. And how ut minus b is defined, for t less than b it will take value 0, for t greater than equal to b it will take value 1. So now I want to subtract these two functions, ut minus a minus ut minus b, right? So let me just write their domains something like, so suppose b is greater than a, suppose you are on the real line a, because दोनों में से एक तो बड़ा होगा ही, right? And as per the definition of ft we have defined above, we have always be lying to the right hand side of it. So because I want to subtract them, so I need to just rewrite them, right? So what I can do is I can write it like this. Is that fine? For t less than a, it is 0. For t greater than a is equal to, for t greater than equals to a, it is 1. I have just further splitted the domain t greater than equals to a in two parts, because you see everywhere for t less than a your function was 0, for t greater than equals to a your function was 1. So now I am saying from a to b also it is 1, and from b also onwards also it is 1. So I'm just saying the same thing but written in a different form. Is it okay? Yeah, so I just use the definition of unit step function and wrote it in other sense. And similarly, this one, I want to write ut minus b, because now a will be coming on the left hand side of b. So for writing it in the similar sense, so it will be like for t less than a, it is 0. For t less than b, also it is 0, because everywhere. So this is what ut minus a was, and the graph of ut minus b is going to be up to b. I have the value 0, a is somewhere here. After that the value is 1, right? So for t less than a also it is 0, for a to b also it is 0. For t less than a is 0, for a to b also. After b the value is 1. So after b the value is 1. So I have done this deliberately just to match them with the common domains. So now you subtract these two, ut minus a and ut minus b, because now you can, it's now you can subtract. Earlier you could not subtract them because they were not expressed in that form. Their domains were different, although their domains are same, but the way they were expressed piecewise, that was different, right? That's why I have written it in this form. So it will be easier for you to subtract now. Okay, so now you subtract ut minus a. So the domain is t less than a to b, greater than equals to b. T less than a, subtraction is 0 minus 0, 0. Middle one, 1 minus 0, 1. The third one, 1 minus 1, 0. Right? So if I multiply this function with k times ut minus a minus ut minus b, so it will be 0, k, 0, t less than a. So you can see it is the same function. Which function it is? The ft, the rectangular pulse function, that from a to b takes magnitude k, otherwise it is 0 everywhere. So you see I've shown you the connection, that how the pulse function ft is connected with the unit step function. So now you do the same thing. The way we went from uh, pulse function to the Dirac delta function, what was that way? You put k is equal to 1 by epsilon, you put a is equal to 0, b is equal to epsilon. So you will get back the same thing. Just a minute. This was the original function ft, 0, t less than a to b, k, t greater than equals to b, 0. So the same function we have arrived at after subtracting ut minus a and ut minus b. Okay. So put k is equal to 1 by epsilon, a is 0 and b is epsilon. So we know what this function will be. F will have no specific notation because now it is the delta function. So delta epsilon t will be k. What is k? 1 by epsilon u t minus 0 minus u t minus, what is b? B is epsilon, right? So this is the how delta epsilon is expressed in terms of unit step function. And similarly, you can find for the, so this is Dirac delta function. And what about the shifted Dirac delta function? So in shifted Dirac delta function, it is the same thing. It is just k is 1 by epsilon, a is a, b is a plus epsilon. So it, in this case our a is shifted from 0 to some a. So it's ut minus a minus ut minus a plus epsilon. So you can just remember this one. In this, if you can put a is equal to 0, you will get back the same one, right? So this is obtained from here by putting a is equal to 0. So you don't need to remember both of them. Just remember the second one. That is a generalized, the shifted Dirac delta function. And this is expression in terms of the unit step function. So now we will be we will be now finding the Laplace transform of Dirac delta function, because now we have got a connection between the two functions. So let me call this star. So take Laplace transform on both sides of star. So Laplace transform of delta epsilon t minus a is going to be 1 by epsilon is just a constant, will be outside. Laplace transform of ut minus a minus Laplace transform of ut minus a plus epsilon, right? Now, so we'll be now using what is Laplace transform of ut minus a. So you can remember that directly. We'll be using it here. Otherwise, you know, that is coming from the second shifting theorem. So from there you can find that. So what was statement of second shifting theorem? That Laplace transform of ft minus a ut minus a was e raised to power minus ap. Maybe, sorry, we used the parameter x last time. Don't get confused, because usually we use x, but because today's topic was more relevant, if I took the independent variable to be time, because I wanted to explain you the physics of the system, so that's why I've taken the variable t. But don't get confused, x is same as t as far as the formulas are concerned. So we know the formula, lft minus a ut minus a is e raised to power minus ap into L of ft. So in this, if you put ft is 1, so it will be Laplace transform of ut minus a will be e raised to power minus ap by p, because I want to now find Laplace transform of unit step function. So for that, the f function has to be 1. So what is L of 1? L of 1 is 1 by p. So this is something, again, I would say you can remember directly instead of not every time using second shifting property to compute that. So you can always remember this directly, that Laplace transform of ut minus a, which is a unit step function, is e raised to power minus ap by p. So this is what we are going to use here now. Yeah. So this is e raised to power minus ap by p, and this is e raised to power minus a plus epsilon p. So instead of a, it has a plus epsilon. So it's by p. Yeah. So all what you have to do is, this is the, yeah, nothing else to be done for this function, Laplace transform of delta epsilon. And if you want to find Laplace transform of delta function, which is the without epsilon means the actual Dirac delta function. So if you take limit epsilon goes to 0, so your delta t minus a is limit epsilon goes to 0, delta epsilon t minus a. So Laplace transform of delta function, the Dirac delta function, is limit epsilon goes to 0, Laplace transform of delta epsilon t minus a. Now this is something we have already found. Let me call this expression double star. So from double star, if you put the value, so it's 1 by epsilon, e raised to power minus ap by p can be taken outside. So it is 1 minus e raised to power minus epsilon p. And this one is now e raised to power minus ap by p can be taken outside the limit. Limit epsilon goes to 0, 1 minus e raised to power this by this. Now this limit you can evaluate. What is the value of this limit? Yes. Please tell me the value of this limit. Which form it is becoming? 0 by 0. Is it becoming 0 by 0? Because when you put the limit, epsilon goes to 0. So e raised to power 0 will be 1. So 1 minus 1 will be 0. Epsilon goes to 0. The denominator is 0. So this is 0 by 0 form. So you will be using L'Hopital rule here. So when you will be using L'Hopital rule here, you will be differentiating above with respect to epsilon, right? So that will be minus is there, 1 minus will again come, p times e raised to power minus epsilon p over 1, because epsilon's derivative with respect to epsilon is 1. So now you take the limit again, epsilon goes to 0. So this e raised to power 0 will be 1. So the final answer is minus ap. So what we just, sorry, let me show that calculation. Yeah, so what we just computed, Laplace transform of Dirac delta function is e raised to power minus ap. So in your questions, you can use this directly. Just the way I shown you Laplace transform of ut minus a, which was the unit step function, was e raised to power minus ap by p. So unit Laplace transform of the Dirac delta function is e raised to power minus ap. So that's how easy it is. So you just need to remember them directly in the questions. But all this calculation was essential to show you so that you can understand the connection, that from where this Dirac delta function is coming and how we are reaching at its Laplace transform. So after this, our job is done. After that, you will just have to solve the questions in which you will be having the Dirac delta functions. But let me just quickly take an example. So say the question is solve the initial value problem. Y double dash plus y is delta t minus pi minus delta t minus 2 pi. So you can see directly you are given the right hand side function to be in the terms of Dirac delta function. So, and obviously you are given the initial conditions. So taking Laplace transform on both the sides, yeah, so on this side we know p square ly minus p y0 plus y dash, sorry, minus y dash 0 plus ly is equal to, you see now what is Laplace transform of delta t minus a? I just wrote e raised to power minus ap, this formula. This I'll be using directly now. So it is e raised to power minus pi p, because a is pi, minus Laplace transform of delta t minus 2 pi. So it is e raised to power minus 2 pi p. So that's how easy your job is. In questions, you just have to do it like this. Okay, done. So now you just solve it like that. P square, yeah, y0 is 0, y dash 0 is 1. So it's p square plus 1 ly minus 1 is this. So Ly is e raised to power minus pi p minus e raised to power minus 2 pi p plus 1 by p square plus 1. After that, so you can break it down in 3 terms. And now you take the inverse Laplace transform. So if you take the inverse Laplace transform, so y is L inverse again at the same situation. Now how to find Laplace inverse of this? The first term. Can anybody tell? This we have done in the previous lecture. We know there are different ways of finding Laplace inverse. How will you find it here? Any particular property which you will be using? Second shifting, because I gave you the identification that how to decide, we'll be using second shifting theorem here, because whenever the function whose Laplace inverse is to be taken, if it is multiplied with e raised to power minus ap, so we need to use second shifting theorem. So I recall you the statement. We know L of f t minus a ut minus a was e raised to power minus ap f of p. F of p is L of ft. So L inverse of e raised to power minus ap fp is f of t minus a u t minus a. So this is the equivalent statement of second shifting theorem. So the first one is going to be, so what is f of t? Small ft is the Laplace inverse of capital F. So capital F is 1 over p square plus 1, because this is e raised to power minus pi p into 1 over p square plus 1. So 1 over p square plus 1's Laplace inverse is sine t. So this is your f of t. So, and this has to be now sine t minus pi into u t minus pi, because according to this it is f t minus a multiplied with u t minus a. So ft is sine t. So it is multiplied with pi here, e to the power minus pi p. So that's why this is a shifting. Similarly, second term will be sine t minus 2 pi into u t minus 2 pi, because just the only difference in first and second term is pi is here, in the second term it is 2 pi. So I did that. And the finally is simply sine t, because in the third term there is no multiplication with e raised to power minus ap. It is simply Laplace inverse of 1 over p square plus 1. So that is sine t. So directly I wrote that. So I can simplify this answer. Sine of t minus pi is minus sine pi minus t, and sine pi minus theta is same as sine theta. So it's minus sine t ut minus pi. Now this can also be now sine, one negative can be taken outside. This will make it plus sine 2 pi minus theta. Sine 2 pi minus theta will be sine theta, but in the fourth quadrant, so negative will be there. So again, there will be a negative sign, minus sine t ut minus 2 pi plus sine t. Okay, so I just simplified, because the information which we have, which we can simplify, at least that much we should simplify. Now sine t can be taken as common, so you'll be left with 1 minus ut minus pi minus ut minus 2 pi. This is the final answer of this question, right? Okay, so now you can ask me your doubts. If in the previous lecture you had a question, yeah, I just need to remember where we, not here. Yeah, this was a lecture, this was a previous lecture question. We could not finish it, but I told you we'll take it up. So my suggestion is you solve it yourself, and then we can see if any doubts are there in the next class, the previous lecture question, because this was just stuck at the last step, where you will be finding Laplace inverse of this, Laplace inverse of this. Just this Laplace inverse needs to be found, which is the convolution. And then you will be using second shifting property for the second part, second term, and you'll get the answer. So let me go back to the one which we were doing today. Yeah. So please ask me your doubts if you have any. Yes, Uday.
तो हमने मैम वो 0/0 फॉर्म में मैम हमने एल हॉस्पिटल लगाया था मैम, उसके अंदर 1 माइनस ई रेस्ट पर एक्स बाय एक्स भी बन रहा था ना?
एक मिनट, 1 माइनस
ई रेस्ट टू पावर एक्स बाय एक्स.
जस्ट अ मिनट, कहाँ पे गया वो टर्म? एक मिनट, मेरा सिस्टम, हाँ 1 माइनस, या
मैम तो इसके अंदर मैम इसमें अगर ई रेस्ट पर माइनस एप्सिलॉन पी है तो नीचे माइनस मैम वो मल्टीप्लाई डिवाइड करना पड़ेगा, तो मैम एंड में माइनस ई रेस्ट पर माइनस ए पी नहीं आएगा?
आई एम नॉट एबल टू हियर यू
मैम ये 1 माइनस ई रेस्ट पर माइनस एप्सिलॉन पी अपॉन एप्सिलॉन है, तो जो बाहर पी है उसको अंदर लाना पड़ेगा और नीचे और माइनस से मल्टीप्लाई डिवाइड करना पड़ेगा. हम आवाज आ रही है मैम?
Yes, sorry. My somehow my system got hang. Okay, yeah. Now you speak.
मैम 1 माइनस ई रेस्ट पर माइनस एप्सिलॉन पी बाय एप्सिलॉन है, तो मैम अगर मैम वो आइडेंटिटी लगानी है तो मैम पी को अंदर लाना पड़ेगा और माइनस से मल्टीप्लाई डिवाइड करना पड़ेगा. हम तो एंड में माइनस ई रेस्ट पर माइनस ए पी नहीं आएगा आंसर।
कौन सी आइडेंटिटी लगानी है आपको?
मैम लिमिट एक्स टेंडिंग टू 0 1 माइनस ई रेस्ट पर एक्स बाय एक्स।
अच्छा, उसका आंसर क्या होता है?
हम 1।
हाँ तो बट एक्स, फिर पी का कोएफिशिएंट नेगेटिव भी है ना। ई रेज़ टू
यस मैम, तो माइनस से मल्टीप्लाई डिवाइड तभी हम करेंगे, तभी तो नेगेटिव मैं एंड पे बोल रहा था।
ओके, सो अकॉर्डिंग टू दैट योर आंसर विल बी माइनस ई रेज़ टू माइनस एपी।
यस मैम।
नो, थोड़ा सा उसको देखना पड़ेगा, उस आइडेंटिटी का जो आप स्टैंडर्ड रिजल्ट यूज करते हो उसमें वो नेगेटिव कहीं ना कहीं, क्योंकि ई की पावर की एक्सपेंशन यूज करोगे ना। ई की एक्सपेंशन बेसिकली वो आइडेंटिटी कहाँ से आई है, ई की। अगर आप ई रेज टू माइनस ई एप्सिलॉन पी को एक्सपैंड करोगे 1 प्लस एक्स स्क्वायर बाई 2, वो 1 और 1 कैंसिल हो जाते हैं और फिर वो टर्म्स कैंसिल होते हैं, वहां से आता है। तो यू ट्राई दैट वे, आई डाउट वो नेगेटिव नहीं आएगा, बिकॉज ऐसा नहीं होता है कि लिमिट दो तरीके से इवेल्युएट करो तो दोनों अलग आंसर आए। थोड़ा सा उसको वर्कआउट करो, यू विल सी सम फ्लॉ माइट बी देयर।
ओके मैम, थैंक यू।
No, you don't need to remember the proof. You just need to use directly the result in initial value problems. You just need to know what is the Laplace transform of Dirac delta function, what is the Laplace transform of unit step function directly. But all these things were necessary. Otherwise, you could have just not grabbed it, that from where it is coming. Right? So that's all for today. Rest of the doubts I'll take in next class, and I'll again suggest you the question which we have left in the previous class. You try that yourself, and I'll verify the answer for you in the next class, because in that no new concept is to be applied. It's just the convolution. Using convolution you have to solve the integral and you'll get the answer, and rest of your doubts I'll take up in the next class. Thank you.